make sure you're all set up.
Okay, so we're live right now.
Yep.
Well, good. Well, then, just in case for all of our early joiners, we'll wait for people to start popping in. We're just going to buy some time here for a couple of seconds, but I'm going to go ahead and get started, Sam.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good deal. So, everybody, Joe Gehring, Vice President of Recruiting here at Anderson Trucking Service. Welcome to our something edition since we started back in March of 2021. And this is I think we've made it every single week so far. And so tonight we have a super special guest. I'm going to tell you right now, this guy's good. As much as you're going to tell by the end of the night. So, Charlie, what is your official title?
Safety Specialist, Cargo Securement.
Okay. And you've been with ATS how long now?
16 years.
Okay, fantastic. So, folks, tonight we are going to talk about flatbed securement training. It's been a huge part of questions that have been coming to ATS, and I'm guessing just in general, whether you're looking at Anderson Trucking Service to come to work for or you're looking for another carrier to go for, we really just want to kind of cover a lot of the questions that we are getting and kind of explain our methodology on how ATS has been able to be successful for over 65 years, primarily in the flatbed specialized arena. Obviously, we've got a very big van division, we've got a very big logistics division, but flatbed specialized is where we got started, going into heavy haul. And we've got just so many drivers that have gone through that entire career path, starting as a brand new flatbedder, working with Charlie probably 16 years ago. And these are now our 19-axle heavy haul drivers years down the road because of the experience that they've gained with us. So, Charlie, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to join me tonight.
Thanks, Joe.
So, we got comments that are going to be coming in. We do have a pretty big list of agenda items to cover tonight. So, Sam, as always, I'm going to kind of ask you to keep an eye on the comments the best you can. I'll try to keep caught up as much as I can. But basically, let's start out with the first question. So, the value of proper securement training in the eyes of ATS or any organization, how would you kind of define that?
Well, I mean, a properly trained driver is going to be much better off out on the road, not only securing his loads, but just operating more efficiently. More efficiency leads to just better operation, right? I mean, that driver knows what he needs to do, heads out and does it, effectively does it within a fair amount of time, and is able to operate, effectively.
So what does it kind of show? So when we kind of compare ourselves to the competition that's out there, and we're taking a look at, I mean, good securement training, I'm guessing, also brings a lot of deliverables for a reduction in incidents, severity of incidents. Do you have a couple of figures or a couple of, just generalized statements you want to make about that?
Well, I mean, a driver that heads out on the road that's properly trained and understands what he needs to do is less likely to have cargo claims and cargo issues, is less likely to get in trouble with DOT and get put out of service or get CSA points or something like that, and certainly also is more likely to get that load to the delivery damage-free, and that's certainly important from the customer standpoint that we get the loads there the way we picked them up.
Right, spot on. And you guys, I'm just gonna really state it. So I want to also, now that we're kind of getting going here, and we got some folks that are chiming in. I always like to just call out and say thank you for our current ATS drivers that participate in this. Nothing's more valuable, especially to a driver who's considering ATS to be the next career change move for them, to have what we're talking about reinforced with some of you guys speaking out. So as always, I really appreciate you guys, kind of just making some comments and answering some of the questions that you guys see come along on the comment box here. So, so I'm going to go probably to the biggest thing of ATS. So just so the entire group knows, almost 50% of the drivers that join our company are drivers that have never had flatbed experience. I think the real number is around 47%. So basically 5 out of every 10 drivers every week that are coming through our orientation, these guys have never pulled an open deck trailer. They've been pulling tanker, they've been pulling vans, they've been pulling reefer.
Yep.
And so can I ask, when these new drivers are coming in, we already know that they've got some anxiety about just what's this all going to be, what's securement training really going to look like. Mm-hmm. Can you share a couple of the examples of some of the initial, probably the biggest vocal things that you hear from the drivers?
Well, even today, a comment I got from one of my ST drivers, or one of my new drivers, was basically that he was nervous about it, that he didn't think he could understand the regs or didn't understand that he wouldn't be able to get it. And basically about halfway through our class today, he kind of stopped me and said, "Hey, I can get this, right? I can understand this. It wasn't necessarily as complex as he was imagining it, that it was understandable, that we made it enjoyable, easy to learn, and easy to understand," and he was really happy about that. So
Awesome.
yeah, so I think we're definitely headed out on the right foot with that one.
So out of curiosity, I don't have the stat. I know that I've been doing this for long enough, but I've got a pretty good feeling. But the failure rate of drivers, and we know that we have some, and just so everybody's aware, and Charlie can kind of expand on this a little bit, but when we do have a driver that fails a certain section of securement training, there is additional training that we offer those. But at the end of the day, in a annual basis, what percentage of the drivers actually really don't make it through?
Well, I think most of them are going to make it through training. They might get out on the road and decide that, it's not for them.
Right.
Sometimes that happens. But we're going to work with them in the training to make sure that they have an understanding before they head out on the road, that they feel prepared enough, to get out and get started, and realizing that the training doesn't end once securement class is done. We're going to be out there. We're going to be there for them should they have any questions, to reach out to us, primarily through our cargo picture securement program.
Right.
That they send in with questions or comments or just asking us to take a look. And I want them to know that once they leave, we're still here.
Right.
We're still answering questions. We're still taking calls, and we're still ready to help them out.
So let me ask you, when a driver is brand new to this, can you kind of paint a picture on what they expect on the front end during orientation, what they should expect probably that first couple of months once they're on the road, and then what it looks like after, maybe 90 days or 120 days? Because there is kind of phases that we do here, right?
Right, yeah, they're going to work in hopefully to a load that's pretty basic up front, so they can get understanding of how to use the chains and straps and how to tie loads down, how to do their load checks, and certainly keep the load on the trailer. And then for our extended or our ST drivers, we're going to be looking at their first 10 loads through this cargo picture program. And so basically they get dispatched as normal, they load, secure, take pictures, and then they just send them in for review. And that's going to go for 10 loads. After 10 loads, if we feel that they're doing well and they feel comfortable, then they're basically, they don't have to send the pictures in anymore. They certainly can if they have any questions, but at that point they'd be rolling out on their own.
So I know that we get a lot of questions. So, the big question is always, so you're trying to tell me that 24/7, that if I'm on a load and at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, I've just secured a load and I'm not quite sure, how does that picture program really work?
We're still here, yeah. It's probably going to go with a little bit of help from the extended coverage team to reach out to us if we're not, watching our phones at 100% of the time. A lot of times extended coverage will email us or call us and say, "Hey, we've got a driver that's waiting on a question," triggering us to grab our phones and get their question answered.
Good.
But I've talked to drivers late on Saturday nights and early on Sunday mornings, and really there's no time that we're inaccessible. Maybe a little delayed before we get back to you if it's 3 in the morning, but we're still going to try to get back to you as soon as possible.
Awesome. Real quick, Sam, are you keeping an eye on the comments?
Yep.
Okay, good, because we got just a lot to talk about here. So, all right, so the biggest complaint we get is from that driver who clearly has got a tremendous amount of experience. They've got 10 years plus working for another carrier, but they've never worked with ATS, but we still require them to go through the ATS securement training.
Yes,
Can you
all
kind of
drivers do.
explain a little bit why that's so important for us?
Well, I think it's important no matter what stage you are in your career to get that refresh of regs, get that refresh of information. And even today, 2 long-term drivers both made comments to me that, "Hey, I learned a couple things," and that's always nice to hear, because no matter if you've been on the road 10 years or 30 years, sometimes there's things that we forget about, things that change, and sometimes it's nice to go back through training and kind of get that refresh and that update, every so often.
Right.
Yeah, I get comments all the time from flatbed drivers that say, "Hey, I wish I'd had this training when I started. I wish I would have had this training 5 years ago." And almost always I'm getting comments on each week on, "Hey, that's cool. I got to learn something," and that's always nice to hear.
Well, and so here's Joe talking for a second, but being responsible for recruiting drivers, I will tell you that we do pay attention to drivers that are coming into class, and sometimes we'll get that driver that they know it all and they don't want to learn anything new. I will tell you right now, for us, that is probably the biggest flag and warning and concern that we have, because anybody who does this, if they can learn something new, that's going to help keep the load safe, to keep them safe. The reality is, that's the kind of driver mentality, because you've never learned it all.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, especially depending on what company they may have started with, some companies do no training. Welcome to Flatbed, out the door you go, here's your equipment, and have a nice day, with no explanation of anything. No trainer, no help, no back, office help or anything like that. So I think it's always nice to know that, hey, we're starting you off with the securement class, both in person and out in the shop, tying stuff down. We do trailer training, and then following up after class with the securement picture program.
Well, and you guys, we know that there's always going to be an anxiety for new flatbedder, of course. And I'll tell you, we're also the first to tell you that if you're in class and you're just feeling uncomfortable, and I think you brought it up earlier, that sometimes actually somebody makes it through the training, they go out and do it for a month or two, and they just don't get that comfort level. And sometimes they'll step out of the open deck and then move into one of the other divisions. It doesn't happen very often, but the reality is we are not going to be somebody that wants somebody out there that's doing something that they're not only comfortable with, but they're competent and confident in what they're doing, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times that, especially starting out, those first handful of loads, they may have tied it down, they feel okay about it, but they just are looking for someone else to say, yes, it's good, or no, you got to change this, or it's nice to have that second set or third set of eyes to say yes or no. It's not just you're on your own.
Well, and so everybody, and Charlie, you probably know better than anybody. So a brand new driver coming in is going to come through what we call our securement training. Mm-hmm. And we have a classification system here at ATS, and it's kind of that career path. So a brand new driver coming in with absolutely no experience is going to start out as a class 4. And then from a class 4, and the dimensions for a class 4, Charlie, I think I know them, but do you?
Mostly legal freight with just slightly oversized.
I think it's up to like 10 feet wide.
Yeah.
And so you go from a class 4, and then you get promoted up to a class 3, then to a class 2, then to a class 1, and then to a class 1A. So every one of those steps is an increase in the dimensions of the freight that you can haul. And when you become a class 1A, and just to give you an idea, you have to haul 5 loads at the next class level to qualify to get to move that level. So sometimes freight conditions play a big role in that, to where if we've just got a lot of overdimensional freight in our systems, you can move on that class system a lot quicker. But when you get to that class 1A, you can then get promoted up into a 4-axle truck, and that's what we classify as heavy haul. And then at that point, you're basically training to be anywhere from a 7-axle up to a 19-axle driver. And there's additional securement training that goes through all of that as well, right? Yeah,
between the transition from traditional specialized to the heavy haul, we would come back in for a short securement class.
Good deal.
Yep.
I'm going to just pause a second. Samantha, is there anything popping up so far? Or?
Comments are good.
Huh?
Comments are good.
Good deal. And folks, I love the most challenging, throw the elephant on the table questions, because, we call this ATS Live Ask Us Anything. We really do want to be known as that company that does not avoid a single question. And I'll be the first to acknowledge also that we're aware that that's going to turn some drivers off, but our goal is to be reaching those drivers that are looking for what we have and how we do things, to be honest. So, so I guess how to be successful in securement training. Any tips that you can offer a driver who's considering making that switch?
Well, I think, like any new position, come in with an open mind. Come in willing to learn, willing to ask questions, and to put your effort into it, right? If you put your effort into it and you're willing to listen and learn and train, you're going to be fine.
So are there some common questions that you get on a pretty regular basis from drivers in class?
I think a lot of times it's not necessarily questions of things they don't know, but things that they've been maybe taught throughout the years at different companies, and maybe had misunderstandings of. what was a company policy and what was actual securement reg. There's a lot of sometimes confusion between the two. Unfortunately, some teachers or trainers will present company policies as regulation.
Right.
And I try to clear that up and say, okay, here's what's in the book, here's where we can go look at it, we can find it in the black and white, and we can show you exactly the regulation. Here's where that person was probably talking more about a company policy. And in a lot of cases, the company policies are good ones, right? They're not out there teaching under securement and traveling without securement at all. The other companies are teaching good things, too, good methods, but sometimes that line gets blurred between what is regulation and what is policy.
You know, and I think that's a fantastic point, and I think we'll be the first ones to defend. You know, there's one nice thing about we've been doing this since 1955, and so, you know, again, 66 years later, we've learned some things that are maybe not, you know, regulated, but we've learned that, hey, this is the best practice in doing the securement training. So, right?
And every company has their best practices because they may haul a certain type of freight or a particular commodity that a certain style of securement just works well, you know, gets it there safely and gets it there damage free, and they're going to teach that to every driver coming through because they want to continue that success with whatever they've been hauling.
Right, right.
Do you guys want to respond to Martin's comment?
So, Martin, the one where it says I've been driving for 25 years.
Oh, down one.
Down a little bit further. Are you talking about still waiting on doing our multi-axle trailer training? So, I'm not sure what you're waiting on, Martin, to be honest with you. So I'm guessing, I'm not sure where you're falling within I guess the career path that we've got. So I'd have to pull up your file. But so Martin and anybody else that's watching right now, first off, there's some really good comments coming in. I got to thank the drivers that are on board that are kind of responding, and I've got a couple of the recruiters that are on as well. But Martin and everybody else, if you've got questions, what I will say is that we monitor all of these comments, and a lot of the comments we get are actually after the live session. So only a handful of people can join us on a regular basis during the live. But this is out there published to not only on Facebook, but we also put this out on YouTube, and we get a tremendous amount of comments after the fact. So 100% of any questions or comments that are posted out there, we're going to respond to. But Martin, I'd have to pull your file real quick. My email, if you want to reach out to me personally, is probably about the easiest at ATS. It's just Joe, J-O-E, at atsinc.com. Samantha's going to put it up on the screen for you guys to be able to find that. But I'm going to have to find out exactly what's holding things up on the multi-axle. And Samantha, I've got my contacts on. Are you saying these a little bit better?
Well, I just saw Andrew's comment that he's filling out an application here shortly. So woohoo!
Good
That's
job.
Awesome.
Love it.
And then to respond to Paul's, Charlie, you can see the screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead and speak on that a little bit.
Sure. Part of what we're currently building on and always trying to add to is the ATS driver app, and specifically the securement portion of that. Within that, we've started to add in what I call just cargo securement plans, which are just pictures of some of the loads we get common questions on, which really helps when I'm talking to a driver to say, hey, pull up your app, head to this area. We can both look at the same picture and say, hey, and kind of relate how that applies to the load the driver is currently on. Also within there is the videos where we go through RGN connection, disconnection. What else is in there? I'm trying to think.
It's a pretty big library.
How to shorten the chain, how to throw a strap safely, or how to use less stress. And just kind of some tips and tricks videos. But I'm sure as time goes on, we're going to just continue to add to that because it's really a nice medium to talk and communicate with. And being on the driver app, it's available 24/7 to the driver. So if it is Sunday at midnight, he can pull up that video and watch it, and certainly call with questions. But it's nice to have that information be readily accessible all the time.
You know, I want to comment too. So for any of our active drivers, this ATS driver app that Charlie's talking about, the resources that are on there are through the roof, to be honest. But I want to let you know there's two platforms. So if you're an active driver at ATS, you've got accessibility to just a lot of resources. On the non-driver side, on our Drive for ATS, we're actually about to launch a new resource center And these are going to be a lot of products and questions that are being answered for a driver that may not be with ATS, and they may never come to ATS, and that's okay. But we do want to be preparing a resource center to bring value where we can actually help any commercial Class A driver that's out there. So, but Charlie, I can tell you, I've seen a lot of your videos, and you do a fantastic job.
Thanks.
There was a question that came up. So, Brian, I see your question as far as, can you give a general overview of your driver management setup? So, great question. So we know already that fleet manager-driver relationship is critical. I will tell you that we've got fleet managers that are in our van division only. We've got fleet managers that are in our flatbed specialized division only, and fleet managers that are in our heavy haul. So yes, there is some consideration based on the experience level. We try to never have more than 30 drivers for fleet manager. 25 is probably ideal, but like I said, 30 is about the area that we'd like to stay in. And yes, we do have fleet managers that typically tend to work with the new company drivers, and then we've got another fleet manager that might work more with the seasoned drivers that have got a little bit more experience and a higher class level. Anything to add to that, Charlie?
No, not really.
Yeah, I mean, we pay a lot of attention to that, clearly. But yeah, so the one thing I will tell you is that we don't have fleet managers intermingled on 1 minute they're dispatching somebody on a flatbed load, the next minute on a heavy haul load, the next minute on a van load. We want to have the best expert to keep that driver successful, and a lot of that has to do with the experience and the longevity that fleet manager has on board with ATS.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So fantastic question. Anything else I'm missing yet, Sam?
No, you're good to go.
Good deal. So one other question I've got in here. Well, I'm going to jump to just a general question about Anderson Trucking because you guys were already at 7 minutes, and I knew this was going to go very quick. But can you kind of walk through the experience that a driver is going to have? So, we say we have securement training. What does that mean? I mean, you've got different, you do on training day 1, you've got a day planned out.
Yep.
Day number 2, so just kind of walk a driver through when they start securement training what to expect.
Sure. So on day 1 is basically, I call it our classroom day. We're going to spend about 4 hours or so in a classroom talking about everything related to securement. Going to start off with the equipment, then move into the actual chains, binders, traps, and so on, how we get ratings, then moving into how we use those securements and how that relates to credit for those devices towards our total on the load, and then getting into making sure we're always covering for our weight, always covering for length, making sure our DOT regulations are followed, and then I kind of finish up the day with addressing some of the specific commodities that we deal with frequently that have some more interesting and kind of things about them that make them a little more tricky to do. So then we talk about that. And that's basically day 1. So it's basically all classroom related, which really mimics what we have on the driver app also, which is the cargo securement manual. Forgot about that. And then on day 2, we spend about 4 hours out in the shop tying stuff down, practicing with the chains and the straps and the things we talked about on day 1. Spend a few hours doing that. We walk around as a group. We talk about different items, good things, bad things, ways, techniques to use, and then we also then go outside to practice taking it apart and putting together an RGN, and then also sliding axles on trailers. Because not every company has trailers with sliding axles, so we like to cover that and kind of give just a little brief overview of how that works. Because sometimes, depending on where the driver is in the U.S., they might have to have their axles opened, or they might have to have them closed. So we like to talk about that and get a little bit of refresh. And also that is recovered, though, on the ATS driver app. All the different trailers have kind of a real quick manual on each one, because they all kind of go about it just a little bit differently, and all that information is recovered there, too.
Awesome. Well, I am going to ask you questions. So there's a couple of questions. So I see a message from you, Andrew. So Andrew, I'm going to come back to that in just a second. So Charlie, based on what you just explained, I think it's really important that people don't really understand the variables between loads, between how you secure a load of pipe versus how you secure a piece of granite versus how you secure a cable reel. Can you kind of give a couple of examples of why some of these are just so different? A crane boom and the pressure points, for example.
Yeah, I mean, some commodities might have specific requirements related to type of securement, whether it has to be chain or strap, and a lot of that has to do with damage and preventing that. And then some of them are specific to, they might have their own regulation that specifically addresses them, that they require certain things. Some freight requires placement of securements, like you were talking granite. We have to secure granite in a certain way where we don't cause any damage to it. So, and that's what we go through, in talking about some of those more intricate items that require proper placement of securement so that we don't cause damage.
Just so I don't even know this. So being here 31 years, I don't think I've ever asked this question. Do we have an idea? Is there a good portion of our customers that when we're getting their freight, that they're telling us this is the tie down requirements? Is that a pretty big number or a pretty low number?
I think most will give help to the driver if it's requested. If a driver says, hey, what do other guys do? Or give me some tips on, where should I put securements? Because certainly the customer doesn't want their freight to be damaged either.
Right.
So they have a vested interest in helping that driver and saying, hey, most guys will use straps, most guys will place them here and there, and try to get that driver off on the right foot. And certainly if the guy still has questions, he can absolutely reach out to us. He's probably going to send in pictures to us. We'll review the pictures and call him back and talk about what's going to work and techniques to try.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you folks right now that what's beautiful about Anderson Trucking is our customers, and I'm not going to list any of them by name, but our customers are pretty loyal, and we've got long-term relationships with them. And I'm going to tell you that I believe that when an ATS truck pulls in, that there is a different feeling of appreciation of the shipper than some of the other carriers that they've never seen or heard of before, because it's brokered, for example. And I've heard that our customers are extremely good about if you got to tarp the load and helping get the tarp up on top of the load for tying it, for rolling it out and so forth. Is that pretty consistent?
Yeah, I think most are willing to help if asked. And so any help you can get with tarping is worthwhile, right? Any additional support, whether it's from the customer or for someone else just to help out, is always worthwhile.
Well, and I got to divert. So, folks, ATS Live, Ask Us Anything. We got some definitely good questions coming in, so I'm going to jump to a few of those. We've only got a few. We will not stop if we have an unanswered question. Charlie might say he's leaving, but I'll stick around until we're done. But Andrew, another good question. So the average time to move up. So listen, it depends upon the driver, and it also depends upon the freight that's out there. I can tell you that if I was going to, make a statement out there, there is the reality is to move from a class 4 into heavy haul. We see a lot of drivers doing that within a couple of years. So you already know that you got to go from class 4 to a 3 to a 2 to a 1 to a 1A. So that you basically make those moves in probably 24 to 36 months. If freight is really good out there with a lot of OD, that number gets shorter. And if the overdimensional freight is not quite as solid and it's a lot more legal loads than we're used to, that number might get a little bit further out there. But a lot of folks don't realize this. The average tenure of our drivers is over 5 years. And the reality is the majority of the folks that stay with us so long is because they are set on that long-term career path and take the time to do that. So some years move a little bit quicker, some years move a little bit slower. But you typically don't stay at that class 4 level very long because it doesn't take much to go up from the 10-foot wide loads to the 12-foot wide loads. And I think I had another question up there. So hopefully, Mr. Fox, had answered your question. I've got another message. I think Luis, did I go too high?
Luis is asking about earnings. He said, can you make gross over $1,600 per week as a specialized driver?
Well, that's super easy to answer. So we got company drivers that are grossing over that easily. So our contractors that are coming on the lease side, our ranges are probably, and this is after expenses, so you're asking the number gross, so they're grossing significantly above that. But for our lease drivers, they're probably going to be in that $2,200 to $3,500 range, and for our company drivers, that range is probably more like, I'm going to go on the low end, $1,500 up to $2,100 after everything. So our drivers today the majority of our drivers are making over $100,000 a year right now. It's been a stellar year, been fantastic. So hopefully that answers it. And it looks like I got a response from one of our recruiters that shows the average of $1,700 to $2,200. But both sides of the business, actually all three sides of the business, Our van division is doing equally as well right now. Right now is very heavy household goods season, and frankly, they're pretty much arm in arm with our flatbed division today. It's been pretty exciting to see that. So whether you want to come in flatbed specialized or you want to come in on our dry van division, I'm going to be the first to tell you that we want drivers to join us for what they're looking to do. You're never going to see us take a driver and try to force them into flatbed specialized and go through Charlie's training. Right, Charlie? Because
Right.
nothing. The only time I've ever gotten a bad phone call from him is why did you push this driver my way when he doesn't want to do this?
Right, because the driver has to want to do that, that type of work. It's not going to be a successful relationship if he or she is not happy in their position.
And again, I'm just trying to keep up. Great questions coming up here at the end. I've been told by one customer that he prefers ATS trucks. Martin, thanks for saying that, but I know that for a fact. And what's really cool for drivers that are with ATS, you guys can back this up, or drivers looking to come to ATS, I assure you that if we've got a shipper that there's 10 trucks in there and there's 5 ATS and 5 randoms, those 5 ATS drivers will stick around and help each other until it's done. It's just kind of I don't know. I don't think we train that, Charlie, but I think it's that class of driver that we have.
Yeah, and I think flatbed drivers just kind of by nature are helpful. They want other flatbed drivers to succeed too. And if one guy helps you with the tarping or securing, then a lot of times that guy comes over to your truck and helps you with the tarping or securing, and it just makes everybody's job just a little bit easier.
100%. Do me a favor, Charlie, because we're a minute over. Look at this and tell me if there's anything I missed. Excuse me, guys. A little tickle on the throat. One question says, about what percentage of your class 4 loads require tarp? So I got to be honest with you. It doesn't matter if it's a class 4, 3, 2, 1, or 1A. I'm going to say that the tarping percentage is probably around 25 to 35%. And folks, when I tell you that our customers help you with that, 9 times out of 10, and Charlie said something key. If you ask, most times you're going to get help. But I'm going to say 25 to 35% is probably about what we're averaging right now.
Yeah, and they may not actually come out and help secure the tarp, but a lot of times what they would be willing to do is sometimes just lift the tarp up on top of the load and just make it that much easier, right?
Right on. So, Samantha, is there anything that we missed on the questions?
No.
Okay.
Critters are on it.
So, Charlie, I'm gonna kind of close this out, but I'm gonna ask you to think about something. But if there's a final statement that you want to make to a driver that's not working for ATS, that has got a little bit of an anxiety about making that change and having to go through that training, what advice would you give to that driver? And I'm going to let you think about that for a second.
Okay.
And for everybody else, folks, like I said, we're coming up a little over 7:30. We try to keep these to about 30 minutes because the attention span starts getting a little bit less. But please, if you're watching this later on, keep throwing questions out there for us. There's nothing I beg for more than is to have those questions coming our way, and we really like those challenging questions that you believe that most carriers will not answer for you. We will address everything that you've got. So even if we didn't get you on the live, we will catch up, and you'll see a message from us after the fact. And again, this is posted on Above and Beyond Facebook and YouTube. What else do we do, Sam?
Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, those are. I guess we're keeping it simple, and I know we're looking at a couple of other sources for non-Facebook users, but. Again, thank you for all of the ATS drivers that joined us. If you're new to ATS and you're just checking us out, we do this every Wednesday. You go back and take a look at some of the prior lives that we've done. If you've got topics you want to talk about, that's probably my biggest challenge is I don't want to keep talking about the same thing. And again, I'm very honored to have you join us tonight, Charlie. So leaving the final words with you, what would that advice be?
Well, I'd say first, if you're interested in flatbedding, reach out to anybody that they might know in the industry that might be doing that work. Talk to them. Try to get their experiences. See if that might be a fit for you. Certainly, talk to one of our ATS drivers on the road. Try to get their input. See what they like about the job or dislike about the job, and then try it. I mean, I think come in. We'll put you through securement training. You'll get out on the road and then know that we still are here to answer your questions. We're still that back office. So I think it's just about, we can, and if you have concerns or questions, ask. We're glad to help answer those, especially during securement class.
Good. Well, like I said, Charlie is not a better pro. Appreciate the 16 years you've had with us here. I really do mean that. And for you drivers that are out there that are just kind of on the fence, I assure you that our entire safety department, Charlie and his entire staff, are not going to let you walk out of here set up for failure. They've got a very good evaluation process to make sure that if there's any questions on whether you're going to be successful out there doing it or not, that they back it off and do some additional training. But you're not going to be pushed out the door unprepared to be successful. So if you've got an interest and you've got the desire to embrace the training, hands down, you can be extremely successful. And Andrew, you've asked a lot of great questions, and I'm going to tell you, I want you to feel free to reach out to me directly. And frankly speaking, I want to make sure I'm answering all of your questions, because I think you've given me about 4 or 5. But earlier in the session, we did talk about the pay. But again, 17 to 21 as a company driver, probably 2,000, a little higher than that, up to 35 for a contractor. So I don't know what kind of driving you're looking at doing. But feel free to reach out to me, or one of my recruiters will reach out and try to set up a time to try to have a chat with you sometime tomorrow. So I don't see anything else that's out there right now. Robbie says, great job, Charlie. So
Thank you.
we all owe you big. So on behalf of ATS, again, ATS Live, ask us anything. We got a lot of good information out on driveforats.com. We'd love to hear from you. You don't need to apply, but we're out there to answer your questions, and I think it's going to always be better to have a one-on-one conversation with one of our absolutely seasoned, and I've got probably the most seasoned recruiters that are in the industry right now. So take the time to reach out and have them answer your questions where you're kicking tires. So again, thank you very much.